human struggles are more or less the same as they've always been. There's a temptation a lot of the times. Most of us go through this in a high school stage, perhaps, or an angsty stage where we say people just don't get it. They don't understand what I'm going through. And this statement is both true and not, because technically nobody gets your exact situation. You can always find a little nuance and go, well, see, I told you. This is just, you don't understand. But as anyone who has spoken to someone going through that, I'm using teenagers as an example, and you're years further ahead, we can often hear and be like, yeah, I get it. I understand. It's a breakup, or it's a lack of friends, or it's some drama with people, or it's school sucking. And yes, it's different and it's the same. At its core, it's the same. And the reason I bring this up is because I think we're told this a lot, that problems more or less stay the same. But then I'll find myself wondering, well, this problem of today, like we'll hear people say, well, people nowadays have their face in their phone all the time. Was this an issue prior? Well, maybe. Were people always, I've heard before people would say, well, people always were reading newspapers or books and they had their head in something. And the issue isn't really distraction on a device. It's, for some, a disconnect with the world around. I don't want to connect to people. Or I'm on public transport. I don't want to be in my own space. I'm going to do whatever I can for that. That, yes, the phone is a new issue, but the I'm choosing not to engage with the world around me is not a new issue. Yeah, so there are 4 books that I've been reading lately. Um, Not completely finished with them. A couple of them I am, but it was a reminder of the fact that things don't really change in the sense of human struggle and what we go through. Every generation faces pretty much the same struggle. It just manifests differently. And I have my 4 examples here, and these are all old books. The first one is the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, published in 1791. The Journal of John Woolman, published in 1774. Walden by Henry David Thoreau, published in 1854. And then St. Augustine's Confessions, which were put together between 397 and 400 AD. So that last one, way further. But all of these have moments when I was reading them, and I've been reading them the last couple months, where I've read it and I'm like, this is a today problem. Like, I've experienced this today. You know, Franklin's constant struggle for virtue and meaning was a very notable one, of just living a good life. And then through reading his biography, the one written by Walter Isaacson, not his own, Franklin's own autobiography, we learn that despite prudence being important for Franklin, and it's Benjamin Franklin, to be clear. For some reason, I have a problem saying Abraham Lincoln when I mean Benjamin Franklin. I don't know why, but I'm talking about Benjamin Franklin the whole time if I slip up on but uh he was he was a person who valued prudence and then was a little salacious and seemingly spent too much time with other women other than his wife, and he had these own problems. He struggled with certain temptations, and they're normal modern day ones. And John Woolman, struggling with the human condition, he was a big abolitionist. His journal published in 1774, and his time prior to that trying to convince people of the wrong nature of slavery. He was an active Quaker and believed it was against his beliefs for people to essentially treat people the way slaves were treated. This struggle for human decency and respect, as well as his observation at times. It's great part of that journal that I wrote down of him noticing how much people were in a hurry to get stuff done, specifically delivering letters. And there's certain deliveries around this time, him and Franklin. I think even one of Franklin's letters that he sent with his postal service either still holds or is very close to the record for the fastest a letter has been delivered between two of these cities, and this was 300 years ago almost. No, 250, really closer. Just crazy. But this hurriedness that was on people's mind to the point where a woman notices young boys dying and freezing to death because they're pushing their carriage too hard in the winter to deliver a letter, or just postal service in general. And then Thoreau, if you've read Walden, much of his comments are on human nature and meaning, and he's in his 30s when he wrote it, or 30, younger 30s, and he's discussing just reflection on society and the utility of civilization versus more independent living, and question of personal utility and sense of self. And then even Augustine's Confessions very early on, discussing some of his issues that he had with the faith before being fully committed. And they're the same issues that people today have that we've pretty much argued away, but it's the same general struggles people have with faith that are the same. They're not more advanced and they're not more resolved. It's just the problem of pain aspect and in the historicity of the Gospels, and that's something that even just a couple hundred years after they happened, were still heavily debated, pretty much to the same extent they are now, minus the archaeological data today, but just the same basic struggles that people have. And this is just a couple examples. Marcus Aurelius and his meditations, also in the early 80s, published. He has a quote there, which just astounds me every time. He talks about how much more comfortable it is to stay in bed with the blankets than to get up and face the world. Like, very relatable, extremely relatable, despite him being the most powerful man in the world at the time of writing, acknowledging that he'd rather stay in bed. It's the same problem. Even other older texts around that same period, and the first letter to the Corinthians, I believe that was Paul writing that. I might be wrong. He talks about how we face temptations being the same as people have always faced them, that they're not new at all. Even Ecclesiastes talks about the the famous phrase there, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything's the same. Obviously time changes and things move along, but the point of all this is to not get too in our heads about our problems being so unique to us. The specifics of them, sure, but you're not dealing with anything new. It's all the same. And even when you say, well, what about we've never dealt with AI or this type of technology? It all comes down to the same general thing. Technology advancing past humans. It's always been a concern. People always feel like technologies are the end. People always feel like the new genre of music is the end. People always feel like this breakthrough is the best thing ever, and maybe it is at the time. And then the next thing, it's we live the same, and to recognize that there's not just going to be this point where human nature dramatically changes. So don't fight against that aspect. Just fight against the internal struggle of your day to day and work through that, and know that you are actually not alone in it, and that there isn't some magical solution to fix it. No matter who you are, there's going to be days where you don't want to get out of bed. There's going to be days where you're tempted to be in a hurry. There's going to be a day that even though you value this this virtue and this moral so much, it's going to be tested. There's no indication throughout human history that we'll ever face a life that does not have these things. So just I say that as an encouragement, something I'm reflecting on today. And I hope it's heard as an encouragement of there's no secret. It's just we power through these difficulties, and it's okay that you're going through them, and it's okay to struggle through it, and that you are not alone, and you actually share an experience with some of the greatest people in history, and they were still able to be great despite these things. So yeah, that's what I got. Happy Monday. It's good to be here. I appreciate you listening if you made it this far. And yeah, that's what I got. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, and I will see y'all next week.